I accused my affair partner of assault when my husband found us, and it backfired completely. You know what's crazy about marriage? How you can think you know someone completely and then they go and surprise you in the worst possible way. I'm Olivia. I'm 32. And up until a few months ago, I thought I had the perfect life figured out. Jasper and I had been married for 4 years. He's this driven architect, 38, successful, the kind of man who builds things from nothing, just like his single mother taught him to. She raised him and his siblings alone, working multiple jobs. And he never forgot that struggle. It made him into this responsible, providing type who actually wanted to take care of me, which, let's be real, was exactly what I needed. I quit my job about 2 years into our marriage. Why work when your husband makes good money and actually insists on supporting you? Jasper never made me feel guilty about it either. He'd say things like, "I want you to be comfortable and you deserve to enjoy life." He even sent money to my parents back in their small town, gifts, help with their mortgage, whatever they needed. My dad adored him, called him the son he never had. But here's where it gets complicated. Every few months, Jasper would drag me to these architecture networking events. Fancy cocktail parties hosted by his colleagues full of middle-aged men discussing blueprints and their wives pretending to find it fascinating. I'd smile and nod, play the supportive spouse, but inside I was dying of boredom. Jasper always wanted me there, though. "It looks good," he'd say. "Shows I'm stable, family-oriented." I understood the game. Successful men need the right image, so I'd put on a nice dress, make small talk with the other wives, and count down the hours until we could leave. The routine was suffocating me, though I didn't admit it to anyone. We'd been trying for kids without success, which added this underlying tension to everything. Not that Jasper ever pressured me about it, but I could feel the weight of expectations. His mother asking subtle questions, my parents wondering when they'd get grandchildren. I felt like I was living someone else's life, like I was just playing a role. The architect's wife, the beautiful daughter-in-law, the woman who had everything she was supposed to want, but something was missing. This restless feeling I couldn't shake. That's when Matt entered the picture. It was at one of those networking parties maybe 6 months ago. I was standing by myself, nursing a glass of wine and watching Jasper work the room when this older man approached me. Distinguished silver at his temples, expensive suit. He introduced himself as Matt, a senior partner at one of the big firms, but here's what was different. He actually talked to me. Not about Jasper's work, not about the weather, but real conversation. He asked what I thought about the city's new development projects, whether I missed working, what I did with my time. For the first time in months, someone was treating me like I had my own thoughts and opinions. "You seem too intelligent to just be arm candy," he said with this knowing smile. It was forward, maybe even inappropriate, but it made me feel seen in a way I hadn't experienced in years. We talked for maybe 20 minutes before Jasper found us. He was polite to Matt, but I could sense his territorial energy. Later in the car, he asked who I'd been talking to. I told him just some architect. No big deal. But my heart was racing in a way that should have been a warning sign. Matt found me on social media the next day. Just a simple friend request with a message. "Enjoyed our conversation last night. Would love to continue it sometime." I stared at that message for an hour before accepting. The texting started innocent enough. Good morning messages, asking about my day, sharing articles he thought I'd find interesting. He made me feel sophisticated, like the kind of woman who could discuss art and politics and city planning. Jasper and I barely talked anymore beyond logistics, whose turn to do groceries, when we'd visit his mother, scheduling around his work meetings. Within a few weeks, Matt was suggesting we meet for coffee. "Just as friends," he said. "I enjoy your perspective on things." I knew it wasn't entirely innocent, but I told myself it was harmless. What was wrong with having a friend who actually appreciated my mind? The first coffee turned into lunch the following week, then drinks after that. Matt was charming, attentive, and most importantly, he made me feel like I mattered. He'd remember small details from our conversations, ask follow-up questions about things I'd mentioned. When I talked, he listened instead of checking his phone or scanning the room for someone more important to network with. I started looking forward to his texts more than coming home to Jasper. Started planning my days around when we might meet. Started caring more about what I wore, how I looked, whether I seemed interesting enough for the successful, worldly man who somehow found me fascinating. The physical part happened gradually. A hand on my arm during conversation. Sitting closer at restaurants, the first kiss in his car after what was supposed to be just lunch. I told myself it wasn't really cheating because I still loved Jasper. This was just something I needed for myself, something that made me feel alive again. Matt made me feel like the woman I'd always thought I could be, confident, desirable, worth pursuing. With Jasper, I'd become comfortable, predictable. With Matt, I was mysterious, exciting. He'd text me in the middle of the day just to say he was thinking about me. When was the last time Jasper had done that? I was careful about it. Or at least I thought I was. We'd meet at hotels outside the city. I'd delete our text conversations, create elaborate stories about shopping trips or visiting friends. Jasper was so focused on his projects that he barely seemed to notice my schedule anyway. For months, I felt like I was getting away with it perfectly. I had my comfortable life with Jasper and this thrilling secret relationship with Matt. The best of both worlds. I wasn't hurting anyone. I told myself what Jasper didn't know couldn't hurt him. And I was actually happier at home because I felt fulfilled elsewhere. But then came that night that changed everything. It was another one of those networking events. This one at Declan's house. He's some big shot who hosts these parties quarterly. Matt would be there and we'd been texting about finding a moment alone. The garden behind Declan's house was large with plenty of secluded spots. I told Jasper I needed some air and slipped outside. Matt followed a few minutes later, just like we'd planned. We found this corner of the yard where the lighting was dim, hidden behind some large plants. It felt exciting, dangerous, romantic even. We were kissing, his hands in my hair, when suddenly I heard Jasper's voice cutting through the darkness. "Olivia, Olivia, where are you?" Matt immediately bolted. Didn't even look back, just ran toward the side gate and disappeared into the night. I was standing there alone, heart pounding, lipstick probably smudged, trying to figure out what to say. When Jasper found me, the suspicion in his voice was obvious. "What are you doing out here?" "I've been looking everywhere for you." That's when I made the decision that would destroy everything. Instead of confessing, instead of coming clean, I started crying. Real tears. Because I was genuinely panicked and scared. Someone grabbed me, I sobbed. This man, I don't know who he was. He cornered me back here and started touching me. I was trying to get away when you called my name. I watched Jasper's expression change from suspicion to protective fury. He immediately wrapped his arms around me, asking if I was hurt, if the man had done anything else. The lie was working so well that I kept going with it. I was so scared, I whispered against his chest. "He ran when he heard you coming. I don't know what would have happened if you hadn't found me." Jasper was ready to call the police immediately. He wanted to search the party, find this man who had assaulted his wife. That's when panic really set in. I begged him not to involve the authorities, said I was too traumatized to deal with questions and publicity. I just wanted to go home and forget it happened. He reluctantly agreed, but I could see this protective rage building in him. My husband, who I'd been betraying for months, was ready to tear apart anyone who had hurt me. The guilt should have eaten me alive, but mostly I felt relieved that he believed my story. Over the next few days, Jasper couldn't let it go. He kept asking if I remembered anything else about my attacker, whether I'd be able to recognize him. He talked to his friends, Leo and Tam, about what happened, and they all became obsessed with finding this phantom man who had violated me. I tried to discourage their investigation without seeming suspicious. I just want to move on, I'd say. Dwelling on it isn't helping me heal. But Jasper was determined to get justice for me. He loved me so much that he was willing to turn detective to protect my honor. The irony was devastating. Here was my husband torturing himself trying to find the man who had hurt me while I knew exactly who it was and what had really happened. I watched him lose sleep over it. Saw him looking at every man at subsequent gatherings with suspicion, wondering if this could be the one who had assaulted his wife. When he started showing me photos of men from the party's guest list, trying to see if I recognized anyone, I had to pretend not to know Matt while my heart hammered in my chest. There he was, distinguished and handsome in his professional headshot. And I had to act like I'd never seen him before. "Does he look familiar?" Jasper would ask, studying my face carefully. "No, I'd lie. I told you it was too dark, and I was too scared to get a good look." The whole thing spiraled beyond what I'd ever imagined. Jasper and his friends were like amateur detectives, cross-referencing guest lists, asking Declan about security measures, trying to piece together who could have been in that garden. Then Declan dropped the bomb that shattered my world completely. "Why didn't you just tell me what really happened?" he asked Jasper over the phone. I could hear both sides of the conversation from the kitchen. "I have security cameras covering most of the backyard. I could have just checked the footage." I felt my stomach drop to the floor. Security cameras. Of course, someone like Declan would have high-end surveillance around his property. I'd been so focused on the darkness and privacy of that corner that I never considered we might be recorded. Jasper went to Declan's house the next evening with Leo and Tamara to review the footage. I stayed home, pacing the house like a caged animal, knowing that my entire world was about to collapse. The cameras hadn't captured the exact spot where Matt and I had been. There was a blind spot right in that corner, but they had recorded me walking into the garden alone, looking relaxed and purposeful. They'd captured Matt following me a few minutes later, and they'd gotten a perfect shot of his face as he fled when Jasper called out. When Jasper came home that night, I knew immediately that he knew. His face was stone cold, his movements controlled in a way that terrified me more than if he'd been yelling. "We found him," he said quietly. "The man from the garden." I tried to maintain my act. "Really? Are you going to press charges?" "His name is Matt. He's a senior partner at Morrison & Associates. Married, 2 kids." Jasper's voice was eerily calm. "We contacted him today." My mouth went dry, but I pushed forward with the lie. "What did he say? Did he admit what he did to me?" "Oh, he admitted everything." Jasper's eyes were like ice. "Every single detail of your months-long affair." The room started spinning. Matt had confessed to everything. Not to assault, but to the affair. He told them about our coffee dates, our hotel meetings, our text conversations. When faced with the choice between admitting to an affair or being accused of sexual assault, he'd chosen the truth. That I tried to salvage it, tried to claim that Matt was lying to cover up what he'd really done. But Jasper cut me off. "Stop," he said. "Just stop. I know everything, Olivia. The timeline, the places you met, things only someone you were sleeping with would know. It's over. That should have been the end of it. A private confrontation, divorce papers, splitting assets." But Jasper had something else in mind. "We're going to visit your parents this weekend," he announced the next morning, as if nothing had changed between us. I was confused, but hopeful. Maybe he wanted to work things out. Maybe he thought my family could help us get through this. I'd always been Daddy's little girl, and my parents adored Jasper. If anyone could help us reconcile, it would be them. The drive to my hometown was tense but not hostile. Jasper made small talk, asked about my parents' health. Seemed almost normal. I started thinking that maybe, just maybe, we could get past this. The affair with Matt had been a mistake, a momentary lapse in judgment. Surely our 4-year marriage was worth fighting for. My parents were thrilled to see us as always. Mom cooked a big dinner. Dad opened a bottle of wine he'd been saving. They treated Jasper like the son they'd never had, asking about his work, thanking him again for all the financial help he'd given them over the years. After dinner, we were all sitting in their small living room when Jasper said he had something to show everyone. He pulled out his phone and connected it to their old television. "I want you to see some footage from a party we attended recently," he said calmly. "Something happened that night that I think you should know about." My stomach clenched, but I still didn't understand what he was planning until the security camera footage started playing on the screen. There I was walking purposefully into Declan's garden. There was Matt following me. The timestamp showed we were alone together for nearly 15 minutes before Jasper's voice could be heard calling my name, then Matt running away like a guilty man. The confusion on my parents' faces was awful to watch. They didn't understand what they were seeing yet. Then Jasper played the second video, the one he'd recorded of Matt confessing to their affair. Matt's voice filled my parents' living room, describing our relationship in detail, admitting they'd been seeing each other for months, explaining that he'd panicked when Jasper found them and let me create the assault story to cover for both of them. The silence that followed was deafening. My mother's hand flew to her mouth. My father's face went through a series of expressions. Confusion, understanding, disappointment, and finally disgust. "Olivia," my mother whispered, "what is this? What did you do?" I tried to explain, tried to minimize it, but the evidence was right there on their television screen. Not only had I been cheating on the man who'd been nothing but good to our family, but I'd been willing to destroy an innocent man's reputation with false accusations to cover my tracks. "It wasn't supposed to happen like this," I said, tears streaming down my face. It got complicated." But even as I said it, I knew how pathetic it sounded. There was no justification for what I'd done, no excuse that would make this okay. Jasper pulled out an envelope and handed it to my father. "These are divorce papers. I thought you should know that your daughter threw away our marriage for someone who meant nothing to either of them." The betrayal in my father's eyes was almost worse than Jasper's anger. This man who had raised me, who had been so proud when I married someone successful and kind, was looking at me like he didn't recognize his own daughter. "You were willing to ruin that man's life," my father said slowly. "Let him be accused of assault because you got caught cheating." "Daddy," I was scared. "Don't." His voice was sharp in a way I'd never heard before. "Don't make excuses. What you did was despicable." My mother was crying now, but not for me. She was looking at Jasper with such sympathy, such regret. "I'm so sorry," she kept saying to him. "I'm so sorry she did this to you." Jasper was completely calm through the whole thing. He explained that he'd tried to be a good husband, that he'd supported our family financially and emotionally, that he'd never given me reason to doubt his love or commitment, but this betrayal was something he couldn't forgive or forget. I begged him not to go through with the divorce. Got on my knees right there in my parents' living room, promising I'd end things with Matt, that I'd do anything to fix this. Even my mother tried to intercede, asking Jasper to consider counseling, to give me another chance. But his mind was made up. "I gave her everything I had," he said quietly. "My love, my trust, my financial support for her family, and she repaid me by sneaking around with another man and then lying about it in the cruelest way possible." He gathered his things and left that night. I was left in my childhood home with my parents, who could barely look at me. The disappointment in their eyes was crushing, but not as crushing as the realization that I'd lost the best thing in my life for someone who had thrown me under the bus the moment things got complicated. The divorce proceedings were swift and brutal. Jasper's lawyer had done his homework. Apparently, most of our major assets were legally in his mother's name, something I'd never known. The house, the investment properties, even his car. I got a small settlement from our joint savings, but it was barely enough to live on. Meanwhile, the story of what I'd done spread through my parents' small town like wildfire. In a place where everyone knows everyone, my affair and false accusation became the scandal of the year. I couldn't go to the grocery store without feeling people staring, whispering behind my back. My parents still loved me, but our relationship was forever changed. They were embarrassed, hurt by association. My father, who had bragged about his successful son-in-law to anyone who would listen, now avoided social gatherings entirely. 8 months later, I'm still living in my childhood bedroom, working a part-time job that barely covers my expenses, watching my life fall apart piece by piece. I found out through mutual friends that Matt's wife also divorced him after discovering he'd been serial cheating throughout their marriage. His career took a hit, too. Apparently, infidelity scandals don't play well in conservative business circles, but the worst part is seeing how well Jasper is doing without me. Through social media and mutual acquaintances, I hear about his success, his happiness, his new relationship with someone who actually deserves him. She's not some cliché. She's a successful professional in her own right. Someone who appreciates what she has instead of throwing it away for cheap thrills. I want to be angry at him for exposing me like that, for humiliating me in front of my parents, for taking everything and leaving me with nothing. But late at night, alone in this room where I used to dream about my future, I know the truth. I had everything. A man who loved me unconditionally, financial security, a family who respected me, a comfortable life that most people would kill for. And I destroyed it all because I was bored. Because I wanted excitement, because I thought I deserved more than what I had. The affair was bad enough, but the false accusation was unforgivable. I was willing to let an innocent man be destroyed rather than face the consequences of my choices. That's not the kind of person I thought I was. But apparently, it's exactly who I am when backed into a corner. So yeah, I cheated. I lied. I was willing to ruin someone's life to save my own skin. And now I'm paying for it in ways I never imagined. Jasper got his justice and I got exactly what I deserved. The truth is, I'm not sorry about the affair itself. I'm sorry I got caught. I'm sorry about the consequences. But those months with Matt were the most alive I'd felt in years. And I can't bring myself to regret that feeling, even knowing what it cost me. Maybe that makes me a terrible person. Maybe I deserve everything that's happened to me. All I know is that I went from having everything to having nothing.